An overview. This really should be a 3- or 4-part series. Perhaps in the fall we'll do a 3- or 4-part series so we can delve more into each one of these areas. Some of you that have been here before, we've talked about inflammation, we've talked about good nutrition, we've talked about anti-inflammatory diets. And so a lot of this you've already heard before, or we've talked about stress before. Some of you, not necessarily have been. But again, in the fall we'll probably do a 3-part series of this. There are a couple or 3 really good books that you might want to take a look at or go to the library, check out, concerning brain function. And my focus on talking about brain today isn't really necessarily talking about what's going on as far as the brain is concerned or treating a diagnosis that's a brain diagnosis, but talking about more of the factors that influence that diagnosis. Because as medical researchers are getting more and more of a handle on how the brain works, what we're realizing that a lot of diagnoses like ADHD or autism, memory loss, Alzheimer's problems aren't really a problem that are starting in the brain. They're starting in the body and only manifest through the brain as a diagnosis or a symptom, which is why so many of these diagnoses of depression, anxiety, ADHD, autism are so difficult to treat when you're treating it from a brain perspective, because it doesn't work. If you've ever been treated for depression, or if you know of anyone that's ever been treated for depression, usually it's a real shotgun approach. Well, let's try Prozac first, and if that doesn't work, let's try Wellbutrin. If that doesn't work, let's try Depakote. If that doesn't work, let's try Zoloft. And it goes on and on and on, and not really treating the root cause of what the root problem is. And a lot of times, it's something happening away from the brain that's causing a dysfunctional brain. But anyway, one book, actually Daniel Amen, he's on PBS. He's got a series of programs on PBS. He's a psychiatrist, really sweet, gentle guy. I did have the privilege to meet him in December, but he talks about this brain-body connection, brain-body approach towards brain care. And one of the most popular book, I guess, is this one, Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. Excellent book to get a hold of and read. Another book, and if you've been here before, you've heard me talk about Mark Hyman. And Mark's written a lot of the Ultra Mind Solution book. He's written the Ultra Metabolism book, the Ultra Diet book. But he actually attended the Institute for Functional Medicine when I did. A lot of good information, but again, Mark's approach is the same as mine. Let's treat the body, let's find out if the body is functioning as it should first. And then if we fix that, a lot of times we fix a lot of these diagnosed brain conditions. Okay? Another book is a new book that just came out. Actually, I've only glanced through this, and I actually, through Mark Hyman, was turned on to this book. But this is written by a doctor named James Gordon concerning depression. But the approach with depression and his 7-step approach towards treating depression is, again, a body approach. Fix the body, fix the brain. So that's, I think, another good book. And again, I've only glanced through this. But again, Mark Hyman highly recommends it. If he recommends it, I think it's certainly worth taking a look at. Everybody see that okay? Is it dark enough in here? Okay, good.
Yeah, we can see it from back here, too.
Good deal. Good deal. Now, if I can figure out which button to push, we'll get started. So is your brain broken? Depression, anxiety, memory loss, brain fog, ADHD, autism. A lot of these brain-type conditions kind of fall under the same umbrella, I feel. And a lot of times the treatment for these problems is very, very similar, even though the diagnosis may be different as far as the brain is concerned.
They got to get old. Right?
Especially.
Yeah. Old time.
But you know what? So I started putting my presentation together, and I read something in the paper. It said depression was a Prozac deficiency. I read another line that said ADHD is an Adderall or Ritalin deficiency. Sexual dysfunction is a Viagra deficiency. Stress is a Valium deficiency. So if that's really truly the case, maybe we don't need to do anything at all. We just take these medications because we're deficient in those. Of course, that's a joke. To me, it's total insanity to treat just the symptom without really focusing on what the cause is. So again, our focus for our talk is trying to treat what the cause of the problems are, not the symptom. Hi, Amy.
Hello.
Sun chips, Amy, for you.
Thank you, I noticed
No bugles
that.
today. Here are just some facts. Again, when I talk, I like to look at what's current in literature in terms of what the latest statistics are. And when you look at some of these statistics, it's kind of scary. 8 million kids are taking Ritalin or other stimulant medication. 25% of the U.S. population is taking antidepressant medication. 40 million Americans have anxiety. 1 in 166 kids are diagnosed currently with autism, versus only 10 years ago when there were 3 in 10,000 diagnosed. The cost is, as $8 billion a year just to treat brain disorders, and probably in reality more than that. You know, Alzheimer's disease, and that's a disease that's affecting the older population. And estimates are currently 30% of the population that are over 85 will have diagnosed Alzheimer's by the time they reach that age. So whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's ADD, ADHD, these things aren't diseases. They're manifestations of problems elsewhere. At least that's what I'm presenting to you today. And what I'm presenting to you today, you can read in the medical literature. Google these things. A lot of major universities are studying these things. Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Ohio State. I mean, the information is out there. You know, it's certainly worth your time and effort to get up to date and up to snuff on those things. So a question I have, you know, is a diagnosis such as depression, memory loss, anxiety, ADHD, or even autism, true brain problem, or are they manifestations of other physical symptoms? Well, as I've already said, you know, I do think there are other reasons for these problems, and it's just not a problem within the brain itself. So is your broken brain the result of a broken body? My hypothesis, and I think many experts will agree, the answer is most of the time, yes. Maybe not all the time, most of the time. So what are the keys to fixing a broken brain? Well, first of all, you need to know what your brain needs to function normally. It needs two things. It needs fuel, and that fuel is glucose. The other fuel is oxygen. So where do we get glucose? Anybody? Where do we get glucose?
Sugar.
Sugar, but where does the sugar come from?
Fruits, vegetables.
Fruits, vegetables,
Digestion.
food, right?
food.
So the food we eat. So that's part of the fuel supply.
Nutrition.
Nutrition, exactly. What about oxygen? Where do we get oxygen from?
Green stuff.
Green stuff produces oxygen, exactly true. We breathe.
Air.
And if any of you have been to our stress talks or any of our other talks, we talked about breathing exercises. None of us have breathed properly anyway. Look at me up here right now. I'm only breathing from here up. I'm not using the lower half of my lungs because I'm talking so fast and moving so fast. But you know, taking the time to properly breathe, to oxygenate your body is extremely important for your brain to work properly. So again, to help manage your stress level, to help have better brain function, you need to take time today to do deep breathing exercises, do belly breathing exercises, just to help oxygenate your body better.
I test the oxygen test too. This guy was in emergency room.
Yeah.
99.
Was your oxygen levels?
99 for
That's
my
good.
age.
That's good. Your oxygen levels using a pulse oximeter should be between 98 and 100%, so that's really good.
Almost 100%
Yeah.
and 99.
Well, good, good. Then the second question is, that's in your bloodstream, what's actually getting in the tissues? And we'll be doing some screenings hopefully in the next few weeks. We'll check your oxygen perfusion rate to see what your blood, not just your blood oxygen level, but also check your tissue oxygen levels to make sure that blood that's in your, or oxygen in your bloodstream is actually getting into the cells of your body. So, number one is good nutrition. I mean, that's, you know, I think that comes with what we've talked about in the past. You know, having a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, good fats, proteins, and water is important. Some of the nutritional therapies we'll talk about in a few minutes, omega-3s, minerals. There are several B vitamins that the brain just thrives on. It has to have, and these B vitamins are B6, B12, and folate. So I guess if you had to make some choices on vitamins to take for your brain, that's an excellent choice. B6, B12, folate, EPA, and DHA. And as another side note, you know, 65% of our brain is made of DHA. You can get DHA through fish oil. So, you know, so if someone ever calls you a fathead, say thanks. I want to be a fathead. So that's a good fat. DHA is a good food. And of course, taking a good multivitamin is important. The things that are bad for your brain are the same things that are bad for your body. White sugar, white flour, white rice, white potatoes. The things that are good for you, you should eat fiber, drink plenty of water, and also indulge yourself in an anti-inflammatory diet, which I've given out probably every talk we've done since we've been doing this series. And in your packet of information, there is actually a copy of the anti-inflammatory diet. So, again, most of you that have been here before already have this. The foods at the top of this diet are good. They're anti-inflammatory foods. The foods at the bottom of this list can be and are potentially inflammatory. And inflammation, as we've talked about before, you know, affects our entire body. But most brain problems, diagnosed brain problems, when CAT scans are done, PET scans are done, it's found the brain is inflamed. So if you can reduce the inflammation you're putting in your body, you can reduce the inflammatory impact on your brain. And that leads us right into controlling inflammation.